In Hollywood, you could do anything. You could take things that are impossible, make them look possible, and you could take things that are ugly and make them look beautiful. And this is what's happened with homosexuality in Hollywood and with Christianity. So homosexuality is morally ugly and destructive to people, and Hollywood makes it look beautiful. And Christianity is, at least in principle, the way it ought to be practiced, it's not always done that way, I understand it, is morally virtuous and an expression of the beautiful plan that God has for mercy and forgiveness for sinners, and a restoration of wholeness in one's life through sanctification. But what Hollywood does is it makes it look ugly. It makes it look ugly. And it's easy to do with film or any of the other mediums that I mentioned, okay, propaganda. So all that is a predicate to reading this letter that was sent to me. I just picked it up today, dated July 15th, so I don't know, today's the 26th, though. But I just got it, and it's a reflection along these lines. So it's largely self-explanatory, so I'm just going to read it to you because it makes the point with details and facts and figures and statistics that I was just making. How something that is made to look good is not as good as it's made to look. It's actually tragic. Dear Mr. Koukl, sorry for not being able to write while Pride Month was current. That would have been June. When pride and related issues come up in discussions, it's been an opportunity to share the truth. That's what he's offering here, and he's going to get into the truths. But it just occurred to me, I saw something yesterday somewhere, maybe on my phone or a news blurb or something came up, just an announcement or whatever. Did you know that this is also a Pride Month? June is a Pride Month, but July is a Pride Month too. You'll never guess what July Pride is. It's Disability Pride Month. Disability Pride Month. Excuse me? That's goofy. Now, I think we should have awareness. That's good, because sometimes we're not as aware as we ought to be. But this is disability pride. Really? I'm a quadriplegic, and I'm proud of it. I'm not trying to disparage quadriplegics. I'm trying to disparage the stupidity of this kind of celebration in a month. Pride? Okay. Anyway, so he says Pride Week is an opportunity to share the truth. So first truth is, he continues, God doesn't prohibit things arbitrarily. By the way, this is a fabulous point that reaches far beyond this issue of homosexuality or any sexual sin. God doesn't prohibit things arbitrarily. He prohibits only things that harm the individual or harm others. Do not murder. Do not steal. Do not lie. Do not covet. Likewise, do not engage in sex outside of marriage. All are harmful. As any loving parent, God wants to keep his children from harm. That's fabulous. That's just absolutely fabulous. I mean, I could probably opine longer on it, but he said it perfectly with a lot of short sentences, full stops, makes his point, and on he goes. Great. God wants to keep his children from harm. He does not prohibit things arbitrarily. Second truth is the data from a very large number of reputable, readily available medical and social science sources, both domestic and foreign, provide overwhelming evidence of the harm done by those practicing the pride lifestyle. He means gay pride here. The data clearly show the harm is both physical and mental. Now, you're not going to hear about this, friends, in the legacy press, but this is true. It's all over there. I'm trying to think of the name of the author who had been from Westmont College who wrote a book about this. And it was a very warm and sensitive book, but it was about the dangers of homosexuality and the statistics and the kinds of things that this letter writer is referring to in a general sense. And I mean, it's helpful. You want to be informed about this? Let's have the truth about it. You can call this bigotry or hatred. It's not. And then, anyway, regarding the data clearly show the harm is both physical and mental. Compared to the heterosexual community, the pride community suffers disproportionately higher rates of STDs, eating disorders, mood disorders, violence towards each other, substance abuse, and suicide. A few examples from the CDC data. Notice the source, CDC, on homosexuality that I've shared. By the way, I think the CDC is a good source of data, of statistical information. I've lost confidence in the CDC in terms of their advice, but that's another issue. This is data that they collect. Though gay and bisexual men are only about 3% of the population. And now he's quoting, I guess, from the CDC data. Quote, in 2019, adult and adolescent gay and bisexual men accounted for 69% of the new HIV diagnoses in the United States. Close quote. Next one. Actually, save the quotes. All of these that I'm citing are quotations from CDC. Bisexual and other men who have sex with men accounted for 83% of primary and secondary syphilis cases. Gay, bisexual, and other men who have sex with men are 17 times more likely to get anal cancer than heterosexual men. Research also shows that compared to other men, gay and bisexual men have higher chances of having major depression, bipolar disorder, and generalized anxiety disorder. And the last one here, also a citation, National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey, that would be the NISVS, has found that homosexuals disproportionately suffer violence and inflict violence on one another. I remember many years ago when I was working at KBRT, my own flagship station, in the 90s when I started radio, I got a call from a Christian man who had been in the homosexual lifestyle for a long time in Hollywood. And he told our listeners how ugly that lifestyle was on the inside and the kind of abuse that existed there. Now, I'm not making this up. This is what he was saying. But it's that testimony, first person, was consistent with these kind of statistics. And his letter continues, the data on lesbians and transgenders is somewhat different, but equally compelling in showing their lifestyle to be harmful. There's a reason that the data on lesbians and the data on gay men is going to be different, and here's why, because men are different than women. That's why it's different. Women domesticate men's sexuality. When a man marries a woman, he makes a promise to stick with that one woman, because sticking with that one woman protects that one woman. She's the one who has babies. She needs a man for a lifetime to help her take care of the babies he produces with her. But if it were just up to men without the promise, a whole lot of them would have a lot more partners than they would if they had not decided to restrict their behavior, okay? So marriage, women, wives, domesticates, and in a sense appropriately controls men's sexual behavior. And they're much more voracious appetite. But this is another thing that Hollywood gets wrong, because they make it look like women are just as hungry sexually as men. This is not true. Guys know this. But men, when they are not restrained by women, but they have only sex with men, there is no restraint. And this is why the idea of monogamous gay relationships is I said the reality of them is so rare. Okay, so that's why when it comes to lesbians, you're going to get a different pattern. And you're also, since their sex is not invasive like male sex is, there's not going to be the same kind of physiological problems here. But in any event, there are other things that are going on with lesbians and transgenders. The rate of transgender suicide is really high compared to non-transgender types. And that is because once they make the transition, they don't really feel much better about themselves. Something's still wrong. And of course, what the community wants to tell you is their community is it's our fault. They're committing suicide because of Christians who say their life is wrong. Look at the whole culture right now is bent towards telling trans people that they're just fine, and the people who are not who are complaining about or objecting are wrong. That would be Christians. So the real pressure is not against trans people, it's against Christians in the culture. But Christians aren't killing themselves because everybody's telling them they're bad. In fact, I've never heard that before. I have never heard, not that it wouldn't happen, but I've never heard that allegedly a person who is a follower of Christ killed himself because of social oppression. But that's the claim that's being made against Christians regarding trans people, and that's why the statistics are what they are. That's just obviously false. I continue. This data has been uniformly eye-opening to everyone I've shared it with. Although readily available, all were completely unaware of it. They had been misled by the widespread media coverage that portrays the pride community as victims of unfounded, hateful, archaic bias and intolerance. Yeah, that's part of the propaganda. That's the point. The only retort I've ever gotten was, what could be wrong with two people of the same sex having a loving relationship? By the way, that's more propaganda. What could be wrong with two people of the same sex having a loving relationship? To which this writer responds, nothing. Nothing's wrong with two people of the same sex having a loving relationship, as long as it doesn't involve sexual activity. You see the shell game right here, friends, right? They take the sexual behavior and they just subsume that all under a loving relationship. But of course, that is not what the gay lifestyle entails. All these loving relationships they're having. How do they love people they don't even know? I mean, the level of anonymous sex is pretty amazing. Incidentally, by the way, in terms of dangers, I just got, do I have my cell phone here? I do. I just got a text that had latest information from the New England Journal of Medicine survey that was done recently. New England Journal of Medicine. And it's, let me just look here and see that. Okay, monkeypox virus infection in humans. According to the New England Journal of Medicine, their paper on monkeypox cases in 16 nations indicates that sex between men is what's driving the outbreak. 98% were gay or bi men. 75% were white. 41% had HIV. No women. 95% of cases thought to have been transmitted during sex. So here we got another, the next big thing, right? Monkeypox. Look out, here it comes. It's everywhere. It's everyone. No, it's not. It's gay men or bisexual men. It's not even women. This is New England Journal of Medicine, NEJM, their recent study. They're looking at 528 monkeypox cases in 16 nations. Just thought I'd toss that statistic in there. So let's see. What can be wrong? We mentioned that. Nothing as long as they don't have sexual activity. Don't equate love with sexual activity, is what he writes. We all have people of the same sex in our lives that we love dearly with no thought of sexual activity. When two people of the same sex engage in sexual activity, Each partner knowingly risks harm to themselves and to their partner. Each is exploring the other for sexual gratification. That's not a loving relationship. To love someone is to be truly concerned for their well-being. Third truth, genuine compassion for people, including those in the Pride community, is to always do whatever we can to keep them from harm. This is what Jesus meant, by the way, something along this line when he said, love your neighbor as yourself. I think C.S. Lewis's treatment of that statement is among the best. He says, how do we love ourselves? Well, it doesn't mean we always feel good about ourselves, but we do seek our own best self-interest. We try to do what's good for us. So what Jesus is saying is love other people that way. Paul says this in Philippians chapter 2, the beginning. Don't just look out for your own needs, but look out for the needs of others. Consider those needs as more important than your own. That's what Jesus did. Then he goes on to talk about the incarnation, the kenosis, and Jesus humbling himself, etc. So if we are really loving and having compassion for people in the Pride community, we want to do whatever we can to keep them from harm. So this writer continues, we should not be accepting normalization of the Pride lifestyle in the culture. Not only is it harmful in the present, but becomes a snare to others in the future.